Okay, time for part 3. Let's go. First we have Karandon Merchant. All merchants are pretty nice. I think this is one of the better merchants, at least for non-aggressive decks, since in more defensive decks the Deadly Body comes in pretty handy, threatening to trade with the best non-evasive unit of the opponent, which is about as much impact as you can hope for from a merchant, because a lot of the other merchants are a lot weaker and can only trade with certain smaller things at best. So yeah, and also Shadow has pretty good market options with a wide variety of cheap and more expensive universal removal, disruption in the form of sabotage and the like, and also some more combo-y like pieces to get with this, like Grasping at Shadows or Haunting Scream, to make your deck more consistent. So a really great merchant. And a limited, a 2/1 deadly for 3 is also pretty decent together with the market options. Next we have Marionette Cross, another pretty nice card. We get a 3 power conditional 5/5, cost 3 shadow, so 3 shadow makes it a lot more limited, but if your deck can support it, it's a great 3-drop. Have to be careful if you have 2 Marionette Cross out with 2 marionettes. The opponent kills 1 marionette, that kills all your crosses, and that in turn kills your second marionette. So be careful to put more than 1 marionette in play at a time. Kind of similar to Daring Pioneer, just better. And in limited, I mean, a triple shadow 5/5 is really good. Like, even if your deck is not super heavy shadow, if you can play this on turn 5, it's still a good card. Next we have Spore Breath. An okay-ish limited removal, basically. Give an enemy unit -1/-1 for each unit in your void. Not great, but it's a decent removal, and even if it doesn't kill a unit, you can still cripple it, since the -1/-1 is permanent. Next we have Surgeon Saw, also a limited only card, I would say. 3 cost +1/+1 in lifesteal, not very good, so you usually want to play this as a 6 cost card, so you also can play a Dark Return on your best threat, and then the card actually becomes a pretty nice 6-drop. Next we have Umbran Deathwatcher, another Radiant, 3 power 1/1, gets +1/+1 for each unit in your void. Usually too weak and constructed, I would think, but in a Radiant Wisp deck, maybe something you're looking for, and in limited this seems like a pretty decent 3-drop. Although it's not going to be that great, on turn 3 it's going to scale really well into the game. Then we have Void Drummer. It's a 2/2 unblockable for 3. When Void Drummer attacks, units in your void get +2/+2 permanently. So another card that fits potentially nicely into like a Wisp themed deck, but outside of that I think the card is like way too weak and situational. Sure, like an unblockable is nice and all, but this is basically just a legendary version of an unplayable uncommon in Lesrai Night Stalker. The trigger on attack is just not that relevant. And in limited, a 3 power 2/2 unblockable with a potential upside is still pretty nice. Next we have Wingbrewer. 3 cost 0/1, we already talked about this during spoiler season. You get to pay 2 and exhaust Wingbrewer to draw one of the top 2 cards of your deck and discard the other, and after the 3rd activation you sacrifice him to get 3 1/1 flying lifesteal vampire bats. Problem is, 3 is a lot for this. 0/1 makes it very fragile and not able to block or anything. And 3 activation cost of 2, even though it's for Quarry effectively, without the cost reduction, is still a lot. If this would cost 2 and 2 to activate, it would be much more playable, but I think the way it is right now, it's just a bit too slow and too expensive. Skipping your turns 3 like this is just a bit too much in constructed usually. In limited, however, this seems really powerful and can easily win you the game. Next we have Burglarize, basically a market option. We get to steal an enemy relic and put it in our hand. The Nightfall, I wouldn't want or need it on there, not sure why it's there, but it is, so that's it. In limited, I think this might be too situational to put in your deck. It will be dead in your hand too often. Next we have Corrupted Umbran, another decent Radiant for a limited Radiant Wisp type deck. We get a 3/4 lifesteal with Berserk. This is actually a really good 4-drop if you ask me. Like, this is a pretty amazing limited common 4-drop. The 3/4 lifesteal for 4 alone would be pretty decent, and the Berserk and the Radiant make it even better. Next we have Hold Up, Eternal's Answer to Mind Rot, except it costs 1 more. The enemy player discards 2 cards of their choice from their hand for 4 power. So yeah, in Constructed, unplayable, especially at this cost. In Draft, only in slow formats. In Sealed, however, this is a pretty good card, even for 1 more than in Magic, I would say. Then we have Kyrix Coach Driver, another card that I think is too weak in Constructed, since we only get a 4 power 3/3. The Inspire units you draw are deadly, as also not that relevant in Constructed. And yeah, we get Nightfall, which is also something that I'd rather not have. But in Limited, this is probably a decent card, at least. And last but not least for part 3, we have Lesrai Provocateur, a 4 power 3/5 deadly, kind of an alternate take on Steward of the Past, and instead of on summon silencing the enemy player's void, we get Infiltrate. The enemy player discards all weapons from their deck. The card is decent, since the 3/5 deadly has proven itself decent many times in Steward of the Past over the last couple of months. And yeah, the Infiltrate can sometimes really devastate certain weapon-heavy control decks, and it might also be a decent market option to fetch with the market to curve a merchant into this, and then have a decent like deadly blocker that also threatens to extract all the opposing weapons from their deck. In Limited, a 4 power 3/5 deadly alone would be pretty nice, and the Infiltrate makes it even better, so that's also a pretty good Limited card. Alright, that's it for part 3, but don't go anywhere just yet, we're not quite done. We have 1 more part left, so stay tuned for part 4 of the Shadow cards in a moment.